we didn't have that much money, so I knew that it's a far-fetched dream of mine. But I still wanted to build a robot, So I started to look around the apartment thinker with some things that were moving on their own, and one of those was a cassette player. And I thought, oh wow, I can build a robot from that. That's my engine. I just need to build around it. So I was again deconstructing it, breaking it apart, getting to the internals, and then soldering plastic, with a lighter, just melting plastic and adding the pieces together, uh, probably getting some fumes and toxic plastic stuff in me. But at the end,
Welcome to the podcast. Today we have a special guest, Aljosa Rakita. Aljosa went from tinkering with cassette players in Slovenia to founding an AI company democratizing innovation. So Aljosa, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role and how it fits into the bigger picture at DeepInvent?
yeah, sure. So, hey guys, I'm Alyosha. I'm the CTO at DeepInvent and a co-founder. Yeah, from an early age, I was tinkering around, trying to innovate, seeing how things work internally, deconstructing pens, and then trying to build them back together, and other things as well, not just pens. But usually that worked. Sometimes it didn't. My parents weren't so happy at the times that it didn't. But my curiosity always got the better of me. And I remember one moment vividly. I saw this advert on TV about Lego robots. Where you have a battery and you can program different behaviors and then automate and build your own robot, right? And that was just like fascinating for me as a child. But we didn't have that much money, so I knew that it's a far-fetched dream of mine. But I still wanted to build a robot, So I started to look around the apartment thinker with some things that were moving on their own, and one of those was a cassette player. And I thought, oh wow, I can build a robot from that. That's my engine. I just need to build around it. So I was again deconstructing it, breaking it apart, getting to the internals, and then soldering plastic, with a lighter, just melting plastic and adding the pieces together, uh, probably getting some fumes and toxic plastic stuff in me. But at the end, it worked. I managed to create a thing that moved, and I called it a robot then. Now it was, looking back, not so impressive. But for a child me, it was like very wow. If I put my mind to it, I can do it. Basically, the attitude, right? And that continued all over, like primary and then middle school, throughout college. Um, I was in college introduced to artificial intelligence, and specifically unsupervised learning, deep reinforcement learning. And I, went online, followed some of the big players. It was the beginning of OpenAI then. Before the chat GPT boom happened, they had this thing called Gym, OpenAI Gym. And it's basically a framework. I don't know if it's still around. I have to check. It would be interesting to see. But it was basically a framework where they provided environments to train your agents on, right? So from like a pendulum problem where you had to balance a pendulum with only controlling x-axis, to then more advanced, like old Atari games where you had to program your own agents to basically play the game. And that was fascinating to me because even since I was earlier in when I was younger, I played a lot of video games. One of those was RuneScape. If you're maybe familiar, you are. Yeah. So as you know, then there are lots of bots there. And it's basically an MMORPG where you have some skills like wood cutting, fishing, fire making, etc. And it's a point and click basically, but there's a lot of time involved. And I was always, oh, I'm wasting my time in school. I'm not catching lobsters, so I'm not cutting down trees. I'm getting behind. And we were always competing amongst the peers and my friends. And then I found out that there are bots that exist, which you can download. Of course, the free ones were always with virus. But I also started to build some of my own. And initially, I found out that you can also pay some. But because my parents didn't allow me to buy things over the internet, I was sending money in an envelope to the United States, getting access to their API keys to figure out, again, their internals, how do they work, to be able to build my own. And yeah, going back to the gym, because that is where, move to X, Y, and Z coordinate and click this color. That was the extent of bots. Obviously they broke a lot of times, and then we got banned and lose all our progress, but it was fun. And with OpenAI and reinforcement learning, it was like you don't have to program it specifically. You give it an environment, you define actions, you define constraints, and the model teaches itself how to optimize the game basically. And that stuck with me, and I'm still tinkering with that in my free time, even though nowadays building startup, there is not much free time left, to be honest. But yeah, that's how following OpenAI and DeepMind, etc., I found out very early about transformers and the GPTs. First, it was like GPT-2 and DaVinci and stuff like that before GPT-3 and ChatGPT happened. And I used that very early to build like a chatbot on company information, so company internal documents, basic reg nowadays, but then it was like a state of art, and I could market that and sell, which led me to form my own like consultancy. Couple of friends and myself, even before then, were doing some web development and doing various projects as like side gigs. But this really like catapulted us in front. We were getting partnerships with major companies here in Slovenia, like major telecommunications and pharmacy and like video game designers or studios. And that eventually led me to like this startup circle, and I got introduced through a mutual friend to like first a lawyer that was looking for a co-founder, a technical guy, and with him we built Riskaway, an AI general counsel. And then through some other mutual friends, I met Marcus and Mitch, my current co-founders at DeepInvent, and we started. First, it was as on a grants assistant platform, let's call it. So basically, an AI that user inputs their company data, right? It can just be an URL. The system then scraped all of the available sources online for that company profile, and based on that company profile and some other parameters that the users input, it found like available grants and funding opportunities, right? And then it also drafted an application for that funding opportunity. So that was first project we worked together. And even during that project, I remember we were just talking even on Sundays and Saturdays. We had these leisure talks, we call them, and we were just discussing where the technology is going, what we can do. We played with like artificial personalities, because Marcus has a PhD in industrial psychology, so he has some very like deep insight and knowledge about human cognition, because of course that's very related to neural networks, right? How brains work and how we think. It's reflected in neural networks, which are like the state-of-art technology for building AI today. But yeah, one of those discussions then led us to patents and IP, and Marcus had to help one of his friends file a patent, and we said, why don't we just try to automate that? Why don't we build an agent for that? Because we, during our chatbot era or phase, we built a lot of this basically Lego bricks that you can put together very easily and create agentic workflows and systems. So we used that to build the first prototype, and it worked. He filed that patent. The friend of his was glad and very thankful for that. But we're like, hey, he's probably not the only one that needs that, And so we started to think around developing, prototyping, testing. We got some subject matter experts to try out the system, the pre-alpha, let's call it, and they were very impressed even at that stage. I remember one now ex, but then he was still at Amazon working on robotics engineer, was using our system, and he input an idea. He was initially very skeptical. Yeah, that's no way this works. AI cannot innovate. And he input his idea. You can see his mood, change from this will never work to, oh, wow, there's something there, oh, this could actually work. Wait, this is very smart. And that idea that he input was basically an AR speed reading app. So based on the complexity of the text, it slows down or speeds up the reading, right? And it shows you one word at a time, visually very easy to read. And it's that technique increases your ability to speed read, and you can ingest a lot more data easier, because I think that's the bottleneck currently, how fast we can ingest data or how fast we can communicate as people, opposed to machines, right? So that's a problem he was solving, and at the end he was like, oh, I'm going to file this patent, because our system produces the whole disclosure, basically, that you can very easily convert into a patent, provisional or utility then later on. He filed that, and he actually quit Amazon to start working on that product. So that was another, check, and we were like, yeah, that this has some potential. So we focused on that more serious, and then after a while, we were like, okay, so all of these SMEs are giving us great insight. They are saying how it's good, how it's working, but there's no real way for us to check, or at least not for their use case, because we're not subject matter experts on robotics or biotech or whatever. And we're like, what we are subject matters on, experts are on, is, well, DeepInvent, the system. So AI agents, cognitive science, and we input brief description of DeepInvent. So, hey, DeepInvent, this is what you are. This is your purpose. That meme to spill ketchup, but its purpose is a bit more noble, at least we think so, to help humanity, innovate. And after a first few steps, because first the system lists your idea, if it, to double check if it understood what you meant, then you input your company. It scrapes the data from that to find the industry trends, your competitors, does analysis of that. Then it finds relevant scientific literature, articles that are published on this topic, what's the state of art, where the science is moving towards, right? And then based on all of that, with of course some sprinkle of magic in the background, or our proprietary technology, we also scrape prior art, so patents, to see what's already been done, what's patented, right? What we cannot do, or what others have done already. And based on that, we construct a big knowledge graph, right? So based on some dimensions, you can put this and condense all of the data gathered into a vector space, let's call it. And once you have that, it turns out that you can query it, and you can identify like low density regions. You can identify where's the white space, right? What are the trends where the field is moving? And if you're able to do that, you're able to innovate, right? Because you can just take that and translate back into the dimensions like novelty, non-obviousness, utility, and a couple others that are used actually to evaluate patents, right, and to evaluate inventions. And yeah, we've done that. The system, did that and proposed a couple of innovations. And one of the innovations proposed was actually like 95 or 80%, 85 or 95% similar to what we were actually, hand drawn and working on behind the scenes, that there were no research still. And we're like, oh shit, that's really something we got here. And we were like, we have to file this patent, So we went through the process, filed that patent. Actually, we filed it just before the new year, so on 31st of December. I remember we were still like working, tweaking that patent disclosure, and Marcus was like, "Hey, I got a party I need to attend in like an hour. Will we make it?" And then we made it and filed the patent. So it was, it is, I think, still I am not aware of any other an AI that innovated and patented itself. So then we, went to raise some money, got Marcus started to go around, pitch the product at various like events. And at one startup event at Capital Factory, there were like 50 startups in attendance. He went up there. I think that was the first time that we like shared this idea publicly. And we had this like QR code and a form on our website just to apply. And out of 50 companies, 44 applied on the spot. So that was wow, that's some traction we got there. There's definitely something to it. We should focus and allocate more resources there. So that's how DeepInvent came to be. And fast forward a couple more months. A couple of ironing out of bugs, couple of customers onboarded more, and here we are. So developing the system still. Hope that was not too long of an intro, but that's me. That's DeepInvent.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a lot of stuff that you got going on. It seems like there's a lot that's been going well for you as well. So what major shifts are you seeing in your industry right now?
Yeah, I think maybe if we take a look like 1 year or 2 years back, everyone was very bullish on AI. They were like, yeah, AI will do everything. AI will take our jobs. AI will like come in 2 months, we'll have artificial super intelligence, or at least artificial general intelligence. And you have to worry, programmers, they're taking all your jobs. You're better off going off to live on a farm or something, you know. Maybe now that sentiment has switched a bit, more cooled off. I feel like, and people are like more skeptical. Hey, is this really it? How can you prove that this is going on? What about hallucinations? Of course, there were these discussions even back then, but I feel like now there's more and more of the skeptics, which makes sense, because all the over promising and under delivering has to take its toll somewhere. So that's, I think, the major industry shift. But if we compare like now to where we were a year back or even half a year ago, the progress is immense. You can't even measure it. I think we're really hitting off on that exponential progress curve. So, which is great. I love it.
Yeah, and it's become more of a huge assistance, right? Because you said, it completed 85 to 95% of that patent that you were talking about. That's not 100%. It's not going to replace that person entirely, because the other person has to then, finish in the remaining 5 to 15% of that, get it all ready, submit it, do all that stuff. But
yeah.
So how do you think that trend is impacting your business or growth strategy?
Yeah, I think it's okay in a sense that if you know what you're doing and if you're doing it well, it doesn't hurt because all of the other companies or competitors that are maybe just wrappers, that just feed that to an API and don't do anything actually novel or I don't know how to describe it. That just feed it to ChatGPT and get an answer back with a fancy prompt. Those I think have a limited time span or will expire quite soon. And I think like a purge, or how to call it, like a fire. When a fire happens in a forest, trees remain and all the weeds are like burnt. I think that's what will happen soon, which I think is great if you're actually doing something that is worth and is actually novel. So I think that will help us on long run, because we'll stand out as having like the better quality workflows and actually delivering on our promises. That's why we tend to like under promise, with that we're drafting the disclosures, not actually provisional or utility patents, because then its expectations are lower and we can over deliver. That's our motto.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's a lot going well for you. I mean, you had a Amazon employee be, skeptical all the way to amazed where he quit his job. You've had great success with a recent hackathon that you've hosted. What's been frustrating about the business at this point?
Yeah. Well, going back to we're not quite there yet, right? There's still like I don't know how to call it, quirks of the systems, right, of the large language model providers that you need to get around to, to build safeguards around, to have like anti-hallucination techniques, in example, right? So first we were very like optimistic and just built like the whole agentic flow, and just said, here's this, here are your tools, here's how we do it, here's like our knowledge graph, here's how you build it, do it, and it worked like 80% of the time. It worked flawlessly, it worked perfect. But the 20% that it didn't were like, why? Why are you not doing your thing? What's going on? What's different? And it's hard to reproduce, because I don't know if you follow maybe latest studies, but it's been proven that even a simple thing such as how busy are the servers that are hosting inference models, right? That determines the like delta in the result, how different the result will be. So it's not deterministic at all, so one time, like I said, you get a great response, the other you don't. So you really have to build these guardrails around it. What we're doing is it's well known, but it's an actor critic model. So we have some agents that are responsible for just producing a response, in example, just scraping data, compiling it, processing it, and then providing, in example, a summary of the studies found, right? And then we have a separate set of agents that does their own research, right? Slightly adjusted, slightly different workflows, and at the end they critique one another. So as it's with humans, what works for universities and like these public discourse forums, or why the internet is such a great thing, despite sometimes not being the best thing. With great power comes great responsibility, but it's the public discourse, it's the exchange of ideas, it's the ability to learn from one another and to critique and to build on top of other ideas. And we have a saying in Slovenian, probably you have something similar in the US, but več glav, več ve. So the more heads know more. The more people that are involved, usually if they're competent, of course, under that assumption, they know more. They tend to produce better results. And that's basically the idea behind the actor critic model. and that has improved our resiliency to hallucinations, our quality of the results and quality of the final output substantially, because error compounds, right? And there's a very famous saying in data science: garbage in, garbage out. So if you feed the system a bad set of data, you cannot expect good results, right? So that's what we're focused on, and I think we're doing quite a good job, because we've reduced those hallucinations, we've improved stability. There, of course, are occasional hiccups when large language model providers or just infrastructure providers have their own, bad days, and then we suffer. It's usually on an important demo, but that's Murphy's law. You can't get around to it.
Yeah, and I like the way that you explained that. So it's essentially like a cross-examination of what the initial result was, cross-examined by other agents, and it's essentially like putting more heads in there, just like you explained. So
exactly, and that's been well known. Mixture of experts models leverage that to the full extent. But if you just build your own version on top of that, specifically purpose built for the workflow and for the purpose you're trying to achieve, that's in our experience provides even better results.
Yeah. So you're still working on this stuff, but where do you want to be in the next 6 to 12 months from now?
Yeah, we have quite ambitious plans in our roadmap. So as you're well aware, something that's live in production is a couple of months or years behind what's actually in the R&D cycles, right? With AI, that time period is, of course, shortened. But we have great things coming. That's for sure. I can't really share what for now, unfortunately, but you'll see soon. And yeah, 6 to 8 months working on this project, full on, steam ahead, trying to onboard enterprise customers and some academia. That's what we're working towards as well, because we really, our mission is to democratize innovation and help humanity innovate, help just do our part in this cycle that we're at to build on shoulders of giants, as I think is Einstein's quote or something like that.
Yeah, man, that just makes me want to know more, what you're working on.
Yeah, well, follow us at DeepInvent. We have I think Instagram, Twitter, X, I should say, sorry, LinkedIn. We're quite active. Yeah, just use the platform. Go to deepinvent.ai, try it out. I'm sure you have some ideas locked in somewhere that you want to test, that you want to see if they're feasible, if maybe someone else has already done it, or how you can improve on something existing. And the system does quite a good job now doing that. So that you can also subscribe to our newsletter, get updates there. So great things on their way, like I said.
That's awesome. So you mentioned you want to onboard some enterprises, some academia. If you had a magic wand to fix just one thing in your business that's holding you back or slowing you down from that goal, what would that one thing be?
Enterprise sales cycles. Because I don't know how familiar you are, but that's obviously, it's a long process. But it's nothing that people haven't experienced so far, and there's no solutions. And we just have to fill out your funnel early on so that you have something to work on and potential customers and clients in the future.
So when you say enterprise sales cycles, you're talking, you initial reach out and then you have to talk to them, but then they have to talk to their HR and they have to talk to,
Yeah. And before you get to the decision makers, there's been a couple of months around, and yeah, but that's not, I have my hands tied there. So the best we can do is just to deliver a great product and, present to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned there's quite a few ways that people can reach out to you. Are those the best ways if they want to reach out? LinkedIn,
Yeah, again, LinkedIn, Instagram, you can add me for any questions, on LinkedIn, or just reach out to aljo@deepinvent.ai, or just hello@deepinvent.ai. We follow all of those emails. Yeah, I think those are the best ways to reach out. Again, LinkedIn, follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Instagram, all the usual, like, share, and subscribe. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we have a YouTube channel as well, some content there. So we're building our social media presence.
Well, Alyosha, I love your story. I love that your company is, making this accessible for everyone to innovate. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being a part of our podcast.